Hello everyone. After this video, 1,000 boy kisses will be complete. So if there's another book you would like me to read after this video, just let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to read it for you. Let's begin. Swallowing back fraying nerves, I took hold of the labeled box and pulled it open. Inside was a portfolio. I flicked through the pages. Poppy and my papa had pulled together picture after picture of landscapes, sunrises, sunsets, in truth, the work I was most proud of. But then, when I reached the last page, I stilled. It was Poppy. It was the picture of Poppy on the beach with me all those months ago, the one where she had turned to me at the most perfect moment, allowing me to capture her on film. A picture that spoke to her beauty and grace more than any words could do. My favorite photo of all time. Chasing back the tears from my eyes, I ran my finger over her face. She was so perfect to me. Slowly setting the portfolio down, I picked her letter back up and continued. Impressive, hey? You are gifted beyond words, Ruin. I knew when we sent in your work that you would be accepted. I may be no expert on photography, but even I could see how you manage to capture images no one else could. How you have a style that is so completely unique, so special as special can be. The picture at the end is my favorite, not because it is of me, but because I knew the passion that picture reignited. I saw that day on the beach, the fire inside spark back to life. It was the first day that I knew you'd be okay when I was gone, because I started to see the Rune I know and love breaking back through. The boy who will live a life for us both. The boy now healed. Glancing back at Poppy's face, looking up at me from the picture, I couldn't help but think of the exhibition in NYU. She must have already known that day that I had been accepted. Then I thought of the final picture, Esther. The picture that the patron had exhibited as the final piece. The picture of his late wife who died too young. The picture that didn't change the world, but showed the woman who had changed his. Nothing described this picture, currently staring back at me, more than this explanation. Poppy Litchfield was just a 17-year-old girl from a small town in Georgia. Yet, from the day I had met her, she tipped my world on its head, and even now, after her death, she was still changing my world, enriching and filling it with a selfless beauty that would never be rivaled. Picking the letter back up, I read, "This brings me to my final box room, the one I know you will protest about most, but the one that you must follow through. I know right now you are confused, but before I let you go, I need you to know something. Being loved by you was the biggest accomplishment of my life. I didn't have long, and I had nowhere near enough time to be with you how I wanted. But in those years, in my final moments, I knew what real love was. You showed me that. You brought smiles to my heart and light to my soul. But best of all, you brought me your kisses. As I write this and reflect on the past several months since you came back into my life, I can't be bitter. I can't be sad that our time is limited. I can't be sad that I won't get to live out my life by your side, because I had you for as long as I could, and that was perfect. To be loved so fiercely, so intensely, once again, was enough. But it won't be for you, because you deserve to be loved, Ruin. When you found out I was sick, I know you struggled with not being able to cure me, to save me. But the more I think about it, the more I believe that it wasn't you who was meant to save me. Rather, I was meant to save you. Maybe through my passing, through our journey together, you found your way back to you, the most important adventure I'd ever have. You broke through the darkness and let in the light, and that light is so pure and strong that it will carry you through. It will lead you to love. As you read this, I can picture you shaking your head. But Rune, life is short. However, I have learned that love is limitless and the heart is big. So open your heart, Rune. Keep it open and allow yourself to love and to be loved. In a few moments, I want you to open the final box. But first, I simply want to say thank you. Thank you, Rune. Thank you for loving me so much that I felt it every minute of every day. Thank you for my smiles, your hands so tightly holding mine, for my kisses, all 1,000. Every one was cherished, every one was adored, as were you. Know that even though I'm gone, Rune, you will never be alone. I'll be the hand forever holding yours. I'll be the footprints walking beside you in the sand. I love you, Rune Christiansen, with all of my heart. I cannot wait to see you in your dreams. Dropping the letter, I felt a silent tears trickling down my face. Lifting my hand, I brushed them away. I took a deep breath before lifting the final box onto my bed. It was larger than the rest. I carefully opened the lid and pulled out the contents. My eyes closed as I realized what it was. Then I read Poppy's handwritten message tied around the lid. I stared at the large mason jar in my hand. I stared at the many blue paper hearts gathered inside, blank paper hearts, pushing against the glass. The label on the jar read, clutching the jar to my chest, I lay back on my bed and just breathed. I wasn't sure how long I lay there, staring at the ceiling, reliving every moment I'd ever had with my girl. But when the night drew in and I thought of everything she'd done, a happy smile spread on my lips. A peace filled my heart. I wasn't sure why I felt it in that moment, but I was sure that somewhere, out there in the unknown, Poppy was watching me with a dimpled smile on her pretty face and a big white bow in her hair. 1 year later, Blossom Grove, Georgia. You ready, buddy? I asked Alton as he ran down the hallway and put his hand in mine. Yeah, he said and smiled up at me with a gap-toothed grin. Good. Everyone should be there by now. I led my brother out the door and we walked toward the Blossom Grove. The night was perfect. The sky was crystal clear and filled with glittering stars and, of course, the moon. My camera hung around my neck. I knew I would need it tonight. I knew I would have to capture this sight to keep it forever. I had made Poppyman a promise. The sounds of people gathered in the grove hit us first. Alton looked up at me, all wide-eyed. That sounds like a lot of people, he said nervously. 1,000, I replied, as we turned into the grove. I smiled. The pink and white petals were in full bloom. I momentarily closed my eyes, remembering the last time I was here. And I opened them again, feeling a warmth spread through my body as the townspeople gathered. They had packed themselves into the small space. Rune! The sound of Ida's loud call brought me back to the here and now. I smiled as she ran through the crowd, only stopping when she plowed into my chest and wrapped her arms around my waist. I laughed when she looked up at me. For a minute I saw Poppy in her young face. Her green eyes were filled with happiness as she flashed me a smile. It was dimpled too. We've missed you so much, she said, and stepped back. When I lifted my head, Savannah was before me, hugging me gently. Mr. and Mrs. Litchfield came next, followed by my mama and my papa. Mrs. Litchfield kissed me on my cheek. Then Mr. Litchfield shook my hand before bringing me in for a hug. When he stepped back, he smiled. You look good, son. Real good. I nodded. You do too, sir. How's New York? Mrs. Litchfield asked. Good, I said. Seeing them waiting for more, I confessed. I love it. Everything about it. I paused, then added quietly. She would have loved it too. Tears shone in Mrs. Litchfield's eyes. Then she gestured at the crowd behind us. She'll love this, Rune. Mrs. Litchfield nodded and wiped the tears from her cheeks. And I had no doubt she'll see it up there in the heavens. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Moving to let me pass, Poppy's parents and sisters fell into step behind me, as my papa placed his arm around my shoulders. Alton was still gripping my hand tightly. He'd refused to let go of me since I'd arrived home, for the visit. Everyone's ready, son, my papa informed me. Seeing a small stage in the center of the grove, a mic was waiting. I made my way over, just as Deacon, Judson, Jory, and Ruby stepped into my path. Rune, Jory exclaimed with a big smile and gave me a hug, as did everyone else. Deacon's hand slapped my back. Everyone's ready, just waiting for your signal. It didn't take much to get the word out you were doing this. We got more volunteers than we needed. I nodded my head and surveyed the townspeople waiting with their Chinese lanterns in hand. On those lanterns, in large black writing, was every kiss I'd ever given Poppy. My eyes focused to read those nearest. Kiss 203, in the rain, in the street. My heart almost burst. Kiss 23, in my yard under the moon with my room. My heart almost burst. Kiss 901, with my rune in bed. My heart almost burst. Swallowing the intense emotion from my throat, I stopped when I saw a lantern waiting for me on the side of the stage. I glanced around the grove, looking for who had left it. As the crowd parted, I saw my papa's watching me closely. I met his gaze, then he lowered his eyes before walking away. The 1000th kiss with my Poppy. When she returned home, my heart completely burst. It was right that I sent this one up to my girl. Poppy would want me to send this to her myself. Climbing on the stage, Alton beside me, I lifted the mic, and the grove fell into silence. I closed my eyes, gathering the strength to do this, and then raised my head. A sea of Chinese lanterns being held up, ready to fly, stared right back at me. It was perfect, more than I could have ever dreamed. Raising the mic, I took a deep breath and said, I won't speak long. I'm not real good with speaking in public. I just wanted to thank you all for gathering here tonight. I trailed off. My words had dried up. I raked my hand through my hair and, gathering my composure, managed to say, before she passed, my Poppy asked me to send these kisses to her in a way that she would see them in heaven. I know most of you didn't know her, but she was the best person I knew. She would have treasured this moment. My lips hooked into a crooked smile at the thought of her face when she saw them. She would love it. So please, light your lanterns and help my kisses reach my girl. I lowered the mic. Alton gasped, and lighters all around the grove lit the lanterns and sent them soaring into the night sky. One after the other, they floated into the darkness, until the entire sky was glowing with lights sailing upwards. Bending down, I took the lantern beside us and held it in the air. Looking to Alton, I said, You ready to send this to Poppy, my buddy? Alton nodded, and I lit the lantern. The minute the flame caught, we released the 1000th and final kiss. Standing straight, I watched as it sailed into the air to chase the others rushing to its new home. Wow, Alton whispered, and put his hand in mine again. His fingers squeezed mine tight. Closing my eyes, I sent a silent message. Here are your kisses, Poppyman. I promised they would come to you, that I'd find a way. I couldn't take my eyes from the light show above, but Alton pulled on my hand. Room? He asked, and I glanced down to where he stood, watching me. Yeah? Why did we have to do it here, in this grove? It was Poppyman's favorite place, I replied softly. Alton nodded. But why do we have to wait for the cherry blossoms to come out first? Taking a deep breath, I explained. Because Poppyman was just like the cherry blossom, Alt. She only had a short life, like they do. But the beauty that she brought in that time will never, ever be forgotten. Because nothing so beautiful can last forever. She was a blossom petal, a butterfly, a shooting star. She was perfect. Her life was short, but she was mine. I took in a breath and whispered finally, just as I was hers. Rune. 10 years later. I blinked as I awoke. The blossom grove coming into clear view. I could feel the bright sun on my face, smell the richness of the blossom leaves filling my lungs. I took a deep breath and lifted my head. The dark sky towered above, a sky filled with lights. 1,000 Chinese lanterns sent years ago, floating in the air, perfectly fixed in place. Sitting up, I searched the grove to check that every blossom was in full bloom. It was. But then it always was. Beauty lasted forever here, as did she. The sound of gentle singing came from the entrance to the grove, and my heart began to race. I pushed to my feet and waited with bated breath for her to appear, and then she did. My body filled with light as she came around a corner, her hands lifting to brush gently against the full trees. I watched as she smiled at the blooms. Then I watched as she noticed me in the center of the grove. I watched as a huge smile spread on her lips. "Rune," she called in excitement and ran straight to me. Smiling back, I lifted her in my arms as she wrapped her arms around my neck. "I've missed you," she whispered into my ear, and I held her just that little bit closer. "I've missed you so, so much." Pulling back to drink in her beautiful face, I whispered, "I've missed you too, baby." A blush set on Poppy's cheeks, her deep dimples completely on show. Reaching down, I took her hand in mine. Poppy sighed as I did. Then she drifted her gaze to me. I looked at my hand in hers, my 17-year-old hand. I was always 17 when I came here in my dreams. Just as Poppy had always wished. We were exactly as we were. Poppy lifted up onto her tiptoes, pulling my focus to her once more. Placing my hand on her cheek, I leaned down and brought her lips to mine. Poppy sighed against my mouth, and I kissed her deeply. I kissed her softly. I didn't ever want to let her go. When I finally pulled back, Poppy's eyes fluttered open. I smiled as she guided us to sit under our favorite tree. When we sat down, I held her in my arms, her back pressed against my chest, brushing her hair off her neck. I pressed light kisses all along her sweet skin. When I was here, when she was in my arms, I touched her as much as I could. I kissed her. I held her knowing soon I had to leave. Poppy sighed in happiness. When I looked up, I saw her watching the bright lanterns in the sky. I knew she did this a lot. These lanterns made her happy. These lanterns were our kisses, gifted just for her. Settling against me, Poppy asked, "How are my sisters, Rune? How's Alton? My parents and yours?" I held her tighter. "They're all good, baby. Your sisters and parents are happy, and Alt, he's perfect. He's got a girlfriend he loves more than life, and his baseball is going good. My parents are great too. Everyone is okay." "That's good," Poppy replied happily. Then she grew silent. I frowned. In my dreams, Poppy always asked me about my work, all the places I visit, and how many of my pictures had recently been published, had helped save the world, but tonight she didn't. She stayed contently in my arms. She felt more at peace, if that was possible. Poppy shifted where she sat, then asked curiously, "Have you ever regretted never finding someone else to love, Rune? Have you ever regretted, in all this time, never kissing anyone else but me? Never loving anyone else? Never filling the jar I gave you?" "No," I replied honestly. "And I have loved, baby. I love my family. I love my work. I love my friends and all the people that I've met on my adventures. I have a good and happy life, Poppyman. And I love, and I have loved, with a full heart, you, baby. I've never stopped loving you." "You were enough to last a lifetime," I sighed, and my jar was filled. It was filled along with yours. There were no more kisses to be collected. Turning Poppy's face to look at me, my hand under her chin, I said, "These lips are yours, Poppyman. I promised them to you years ago. Nothing's changed." Poppy's face broke into a contented smile, and she whispered, "Just as these lips are yours, Rune. They were always yours, and yours alone." As I shifted on the soft ground, as I placed the palm on the floor, I suddenly realized that the grass beneath me I felt more real than any of my visits before. When I came to Poppy in my dreams, the grove always felt like I was in a dream. I felt the grass, but not the blades. I felt the breeze, but not the temperature. I felt the trees, but not the bark. As I lifted my head tonight, in this dream, I felt the warm breeze cross over my face. I could feel it, as real as I did when I was awake. I felt the grass beneath my hands, the blaze and the roughness of the dirt. And as I leaned down to kiss Poppy's shoulder, I felt the warmth of her skin on my lips, saw her skin bump in its wake. Feeling Poppy's intense gaze on me, I looked up to see her watching me with wide, expectant eyes. Then it hit me. I realized why all this felt so real. My heart beat faster in my chest, because if it was real, if I had judged this correctly, Poppyman? I asked and took a deep breath. This isn't a dream, is it? Poppy shifted to kneel before me and placed her gentle hands on my cheeks. No, baby, she whispered and searched with my eyes. How? I whispered in confusion. Poppy's gaze softened. It was quick and it was peaceful, Room. Your family are okay. They are happy. You're in a better place. You lived a short but full life. A good life. The one I always dreamed you would have. I froze. Then I asked, You mean? Yes, baby, Poppy replied. You come home. You come home to me. A huge smile spread across my lips, and a flood of pure happiness washed over me. Unable to resist, I crashed my lips to Poppy's waiting mouth. The minute I tasted her sweet taste on my lips, a deep peace filled me from within. Pulling back, I pressed my forehead to hers. I get to stay here with you. Forever, I asked, praying it was true. Yes, Poppy answered gently, and I could hear the complete serenity in her voice. Our next adventure. This was real. It was real. I kissed her again, slow and soft. Poppy's eyes remained closed afterward. Then as a blush spread on her face, her beautiful dimpled cheeks, she whispered, A forever kiss with my Room. In our blossom grove, when he finally came home. She smiled. I smiled. Then she added, and my heart almost burst. That's the end of 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tillie Cole. Again, if you would like for me to read another book, something you would like me to read, I'd be happy to do it. Just comment down below or above. Just leave a comment. And I'll see you again in the next video. Bye for now.